I am very excited to have Clara here. I think it was a great preview of everything at the base, because there was a lot of the things that I think both projects that we work in have overcome, right? So all the things that people were talking before are things that we've survived, I guess, or mastered at some point. We've done DePIN even before DePIN was a thing, even before Messari came out with DePIN. So I think it's a lot of valuable knowledge that we can share here. So I've been chatting with some people. Some of them don't know you, so could you please introduce yourself, how you got into crypto, and tell us a little bit about Filecoin.
Yeah, my name is Clara Tsao. I'm the founding officer of the Filecoin Foundation. I've been in crypto since 2013. A good friend of mine went through YC with Brian Armstrong at Coinbase, and really felt like the security and removal of intermediaries to complete a task, that was really transformative for not just tech, but for so many industries globally. So I've been in crypto for a while, but in and out. I spent a few years actually in US national security. I was at the White House across 2 administrations. So happy to tell stories if you guys want to hear about that world. But ultimately, I think the future of the internet and the future of where people get information really comes to being able to trust the data they access, and also making sure that business models built on top of data today, they have alternatives that allow people to get the best information out there, and really to bring data back and ownership back on the web in the hands of people, not major monopolies. So that's why personally I've been very interested in this topic, because one of my personal life goals has always been to really reduce inequality in this world. And there's so much that we can do in information equality to make sure that we can give people access to things on an equal basis.
Yeah, I love that profile, and actually it goes along with what we were discussing before, like having different people, not just tech. I have the same philosophy is what brought me to blockchain. I grew up in a third world country, so I know actually the impact that blockchain and even DePIN, all this access to information, data, and connectivity can change the whole world's economy. We see it very closely, but it's very different. So yeah, I've been in crypto also. I sold Bitcoin at $100. So I started, as your normie who just got into it, and then I got passionate about the idea behind it a few years later when I started actually reading about it. I read the white paper later on, and I understood the impact that the whole blockchain economy could bring to the world. And it's why I'm also very excited about DePIN, because now we migrated from this only financial idea to actually connectivity and how the world works, right? So I think Filecoin has been doing a very good job at actually turning all this Web 2 solutions and some of these ideas and migrating to Web 3. So can you tell us a little bit about how the process has been for Filecoin, what you guys have built so far, and what has been some of the obstacles that you guys run through?
Yeah, so Filecoin was actually started by Juan Benet, who started Protocol Labs. It was a YC company. Early on, Filecoin was built off of the IPFS network. Really the idea of we can have ability to really rethink the way content is addressed online, but also incentivize people to be able to upkeep that data in some way. Filecoin is really that incentive layer to do that. We really wanted to build we need actual storage for a decentralized storage network to work. So we're in the first phase of the Filecoin network. We've been working with storage providers. There's around 2,000 of them all around the world who are building their own data centers. Some of these might be 100 people operations, some of them might be mom and pop shops. But out of this experiment, it's been really interesting to see people also think about building data centers in a very different way. We've experimented and given grants to folks that wanted to build completely green data centers with just solar panels. And also they've been able to win grants from local governments, right, to really think about energy efficient ways to do that. You can also think about being able to sell at different business models. So today on the network, we have around 200 teams building on Filecoin that are really building major on-ramps to all kinds of storage. We've been at this for a very long time. The original Filecoin white paper came out in 2014. I think most people found out about it. In 2017, it was a private and then a more public version. And then there's just been a huge community of developers and startups all building different pieces of this network. So it's been quite the journey. But I think what's been interesting is we're at this point where people are now specializing into interesting parts of data to store, and we're really starting to see product market fit in different areas. We think about storage as a pretty large vertical. I think the biggest disruptor for anyone, even in traditional tech, to think about storage is the biggest piece of pie is enterprise storage, which is why today on this panel we're talking about AI, because the future of AI really will bubble down in enterprise data. Today, I don't know if most of you guys know this, but only around a third of people think they're using AI, but they're actually 70% of people are already using AI in their daily lives. The biggest demographic that relies on AI isn't who you think. I think 31% of people 61 and older are actually using AI assistants on their smartphones. That's larger than 18 to 25, which most people would expect to be the most tech savvy, but we're seeing a lot more tech adoption happen. And one thing that we're really passionate about is making sure that when we think about data generated and also data provided through AI, you have the way to cross verify and also make sure that people's data in search and what's being shared back, it's not necessarily weaponized in the same way we saw in the previous generation of the web. And so a lot of people don't realize how much information they're giving up, even though the services they use today are free. And we're seeing today a lot more businesses and even companies building on top that don't have to rely on monetizing user data as a means to be able to have that survive. And there's different on-ramps built. I can talk about a few really exciting companies. We have companies like Akabe. Their founder actually came from Western Digital and got really excited about decentralized storage. He saw the potential and actually asked for a job to work within the Filecoin network. And now he's building his own startup, really building the railings to be able to make it super easy to port data from AWS over to the decentralized web. Sometimes it's that kind of tooling that's going to make the big jump. I think a lot of conversations earlier today were around the question of why isn't there more traditional users adopting blockchain-based DePIN projects? I think when it comes to us in enterprise storage, it's really challenging because I spent years at companies like Microsoft, and even those deals probably take 3 to 5 years to just get in the door and land. And then you have to have the credibility and trust from enterprises that they understand blockchain. So a lot of times it's also making sure you have the right people at the table, because crypto often has a lot of people with really great ideas, but not necessarily know how to work in a more traditional business sense. And we have a lot of people that are coming on thinking about that from that lens and really thinking about product market fit to make sure that we're being able to test and validate for our biggest group of customers, which is really the AI enterprise space, because that's the biggest chunk of where we see data today. There's other areas that are really low-hanging fruit for our ecosystem. We have companies like Sriracha really thinking about decentralized storage, but also hot data, so certain types of data that can be accessed. And a lot of the groups that they're working with are existing DePIN projects or Web3 customers, just because for them to validate and quickly onboard those customers, it's a much shorter window. And then we're also doing lots of partnerships with other actually major crypto projects like Cardano and Solana to really back up their chain history, and also thinking about the application layer of companies building on top of that, and really making sure that they have a path, if they want that option, to easily adopt to a decentralized route. And also a ton of other additional companies in the AI space, especially thinking about decentralized AI solutions. So.
Yeah, and allow me to touch base on a lot of points that are very important. One of them being people actually don't know how much data they're sharing. In these days, privacy is everything, but then people are sharing so much data in a way that's not decentralized, and they don't know how secure, how much monetization is on top of the data, and they're getting none of it, right? With big companies and stuff like that. And this is where DePIN kind of comes in and solves it. You can still share your data in a secure manner. You still get rewarded for it, but you are getting rewarded for it, right? Not big companies. So we saw that also last year, and I love that you talked about what you built last, the past couple of years. For example, we deployed Webstream, which is directly getting data from the devices to the Web3 in a secure and trustable manner, like you mentioned. The trust part for enterprise level adoption is going to be very important. How do you know AWS and Google and all that? They create a reputation where people blindly trust them, even if they're not the best solution, but people trust them. So how do you make people actually trust you? You have to make sure that your product is trustworthy and transparent. So it's another aspect that we need to work harder than the big companies. We need to make sure that it's working as it is so that people trust it. But yeah, now we've migrated a little bit. I think as DePIN projects, it was kind of easy to onboard miners and get the data and all that. And now we're seeing the real convergence of like DePIN and AI, right? DePIN brings in the most data that can be used by AI for machine learning. And then again, AI requires DePIN for its compute power. So it's this convergence that it's only natural to flow in. And especially like AI is not something new, like you mentioned. It's been around for years, it's just a hype right now. So how are you guys kind of adjusted to this new market where AI is a hype and everybody wants to hype? Are you guys deploying some specific AI initiatives that you think are very important? And why are you kind of focusing a little bit on this?
Yeah, we don't necessarily think about AI as a new thing. It's always been a thing in data. It's been around for a while. Honestly, it's sometimes similar to crypto. I think for us, it actually starts with what is the problem we're trying to solve, and then what are the best tools to solve that. And for us, using blockchain to do decentralized storage was the most secure way for us to make that vision become reality. It's not, we're going to use this because it's there. But I think it's the same with AI. I think there's some people really thinking today about, I need to add AI. That's not even the right use of language, in my opinion. I think AI is just a means to accomplish an original vision they have, and also be able to use algorithms to be able to solve that in a much quicker way than ever before. The way that we think about AI that I personally think is so interesting is today a lot of data that is used by large language models, they've crawled the web in a way that was already unequal for information on the web today. Over the last few years, we've actually been backing up the web in so many different ways, from large archives to, if you've ever used Internet Archive or the Wayback Machine, we back all of that data up. We have the human genome sequence on Filecoin. We have tons of movies and other kinds of data that film studios may want to publicly preserve, right? And it's just as important as physical libraries you see in your backyard, where the public can access that information, has to be maintained somewhere. The archives of different websites that may have gone up or gone down. And I think what's really interesting is when we can add AI agents on top of that, you can actually not only look at data, but also find new information that today's version of the web may not necessarily allow you to discover. So an example is, we've been working with an organization in DC called MugRock, and they actually request Freedom of Information Act, which allows you to get documents from the US government, and it's supposed to be public. They have this huge archive from the US government of just emails and information that people have already requested to be public. And we're working with Theoric right now to actually build a decentralized AI agent on top of that to crawl information that normally would be really difficult for someone to manually search and have to look at that version of document, right? And I think that's the possibility of not just how do we think about AI and using AI to make developer documentation faster and easier to find. It's also, what are new things that we can do when we can combine a huge amount of data with a new way to actually index it, sort it, and also prove that it hasn't been altered. A lot of other use cases that I'm especially interested about is we're going to see generative AI, and a lot of people who historically have relied on businesses on the internet have the possibility of other people claiming ownership or manipulating over time. And we can at least, through the point of storage, be able to validate what was changed at what point of time and be able to build those interesting mechanisms. So when we think about misinformation, disinformation, photos being altered, photos being changed, we can actually have an entire transparent history, which I think is going to be really critical for people to especially trust AI when something goes wrong. The other thing to think about is when we think about automation in AI, I don't know if you guys have estimates of how much a single self-driving car might produce an hour. It's terabytes of data. And let's just say there's an accident that happens, and the company realizes they have to pay $100K AWS bill per month just to maintain and store that data.
right? Our network, especially when it comes to archival storage, we can be as low as 1/100th the cost of AWS. And so we have all the properties of what decentralized storage can allow for transparency, for change, for proof of storage, and then proof of replication. We have all these mechanisms, but we can also do it at a fraction of the cost. I think those are going to be really exciting. There's definitely areas where today decentralized storage is probably more expensive, but it's just because it's a business equation of volume and demand. And a lot of spaces where we know there's going to be a lot more adoption coming forth is still early on. And it comes down to the factors I said before about sort of more traditional audiences meeting that time frame just to get comfortable. One initiative we launched actually 2 years ago is the Decentralized Storage Alliance, where we've actually gotten a lot of interest from traditional enterprises like Intel, Seagate, AMD, that really want to actually add decentralized storage as part of their offerings. And they just want to learn about it. And so it's been really interesting also thinking about how do we co-create standards in language that they understand using decentralized storage, Filecoin, and other projects out there as that means. And I think it's really exciting because everyone in the room, I think DePIN is the coolest part of all of blockchain because you have real people running real businesses, real users. And yes, people might gamify it. We have it too. We have some people who enter the equation just to make a buck, and the incentive structure aren't aligned. But when you're running a business, those people eventually roll out when they're not in it long term. And I think that's natural of any market. And I think it's super exciting to see ways that we can collaborate with other DePIN projects like WeatherXM, decentralized weather stations. They have a lot of data that they reward as if that data is more accurate, users get rewarded more compensation. And I think a lot of cool parts about DePIN is it really does solve the question of how do we reach users around the world, right? Like with WeatherXM, you have weather stations in places and you can incentivize that a large weather station would never be incentivized to want to have, right? Like islands where there may not be that many people, but it's critical that we have that data somewhere. So I think building new incentive models and also being able to put data centers in places that large businesses today wouldn't be incentivized to do, that's one of the biggest and best parts about democratizing access to information.
Definitely, but you touched on a very good point, and it's the AI agents, right? Because at the end of the day, data is worthless if nobody's using it. And people are lazy. People are not going to go in themselves, do the research, and make all this work to get certain data. And I love that you guys are already implementing AI agents. We're doing the same, actually. We just partnered with Elisa Labs, incubated by A16 Crypto, and we're working on the first DePIN AI agent. So basically, we're actually working with WeatherXM too, where there's so much data from WeatherXM that it's not being used, and your average user, because at the end of the day, we need to massify it, right? What people mentioned before, why are we not getting to more people? It's because we're making it too complicated sometimes too, right? So to avoid the masses, you need to make it simple. So, for example, with our DePIN AI agent, people will be able to go in and say, hey, how's the weather been the last 7 days? Kind of a Alexa type of thing, but with better data coming from WeatherXM, right? Or, if we're talking about demo, for example, what are the cars that are breaking down the most in certain regions of the United States? And then people can ask this to the AI agent to make purchase decisions or to make trip decisions and stuff like that. So implementing AI agents is something, like you mentioned, AI is nothing new. AI agents have been here for a while, but unless we implement this AI level into the data, there's not going to be too much usage. So what's the point of gathering all this data if we're not using it, right? And then I think businesses are the same, right? Even though they do need the data, they're not going to implement also like levels and levels and levels of research to get to all the data, and they might just see a part of it, but when you implement the AI agent, they get access to all the data, right? So yeah, very interesting, I think, outlook for 2025, this AI and DePIN convergence. What are your thoughts on how the market will also kind of respond to this kind of changes? Have you seen anything with the Filecoin community getting excited about all these changes?
Yeah, we were just in Bangkok with all the DevCon events, and our community came together, and it was such a good energy. I think people are so excited because we've been at this game for so long that people are really seeing real users, real demand, and there's also so many interested companies that have used a lot of data that never thought about decentralized storage. So one example is an organization called Karate Combat that some of you guys may have seen in conferences, especially in Web3. They actually live stream all their matches. They probably have the largest simultaneous betting network in the world, right? But they use the Karate coin to do that. But their main proposition of why they've been so successful is they stream tons of media footage. And they have to store that somewhere, but they're able to reuse it and really tell the story of a physical fight in so many ways. And I think there's so many examples of use cases today that our community is seeing that were even use cases they never dreamt of before. So it's been really, really exciting. I also love the wave of DePIN that really exploded last year. Just new people really thinking about ways to really build with physical infrastructure in a different way, because those are going to be the ones that really touch all kinds of people, not just people at trading desks trying to pump up the value of a coin.
True, like the people that are willing to invest in mining and station, whatever, those are the ones that you want to keep. But then again, you need also those degens that will come in and, the traders, because at the end of the day, if people are making the tokens, but then the token has no markets, then it's pointless, right? We actually just made an experiment with our new AI initiatives, and we launched we have our AI agent, so he launched his own AI token, and it was crazy how the degens, it was like $8 million volume in a single day, the first day that it launched. And it's just because you have this new hype of people. You have your holders of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and your regular traders but now we have this new kind of batch, I would say, of people who are working crypto like it was casino, right? They're trying to, pump the fun and all these new initiatives. They're bringing all these new users, which, I think a lot of projects are saying, we don't care about them. They're gonna, come in and go. And yes, at the end of the day, they're not long-term users, but they do create a hype that will bring the second batch of users, right? And who will be the ones who are actually continuing to trade and then just create this hype. That's how Solana made it, right? Even meme coin, that's how they got their hype, right? Just getting all the traders in with, minimal things. So do you think those are important for the Filecoin ecosystem, or do you think you would rather not have them?
No, I think they're actually important for every crypto project. I mean, the way you run a normal startup versus a crypto startup is you really do have to think about sentiment with the community, from your token holders to investors to actually how you build the tech. I do know that there are some projects that end up saying, okay, if I just do this marketing and have positive sentiment, it becomes a cycle, my investors are happy, but that really doesn't bring much real world value at the end of the day to the world. And at some point, that kind of hype just fades, right? And for us in our ecosystem, we have a lot of people that are long-term thinkers who have been serial entrepreneurs, and they really do want to solve key problems in this world. Last year, we helped launch a pop-up city in Argentina, really with really helping their economy think about, with such high inflation rates and the inability for their local currency to hold value, how can we think about crypto mechanisms to be able to really help boost their economy and also drive an adoption of builders there, right? So that initiative was called Crecimiento, and it's Solana was also there on a separate initiative, but it was a great way for us to really look at the end of the day, real people that get impacted when we can think about good use cases for mass adoption. And in Argentina, I think it's at least a third of everyday people in Argentina use crypto.
Yeah, they have the necessity, right? Their fiat. It's just
It becomes such a big problem that the existence of crypto suddenly has such good product market fit for what they need. So
very true, very true. Okay, so I'm gonna start wrapping it up because I know people are tired of hearing people talking. But anything that you would like to close out, or if anybody has any questions, this will be the moment. Also,
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, I know we're between you guys and drinks and networking, and it's been a long day. If you guys have questions, you can just approach me during happy hour. I'll stick around. But thank you so much for having me here.
yeah, definitely. Same for me. If anybody wants to reach out and ask questions, happy to have you here. And thank you so much, Clara. I know this was last minute, but we really do appreciate having you here.
Yeah, I'm so happy I was able to make this, so thank you.
Thank you, guys.